Hey Legends, welcome to Legendmaker, and today we're joined by one of our amazing mentors, Katy. Welcome, Katy.
Hey, Dominic.
Katy is a humorist and a fantasy author. She's written multiple novels, and she's now a mentor in the community. So very briefly, if this is the first time that you've heard of Legend Fiction or this Legend Maker show, what this is all about is interviews, convos, and community news about our creative community for Catholic and Orthodox fiction writers. We're talking creed, craft, and co-creation rooted in grit, grace, gods, and dragons. We're all about inspiring your faith and your fiction. Mentors like Katy are amazing people who love writing. They're either professionals or they're passionate hobbyists. In this case, we're all starting out with amazing professional authors. They offer writing and editing services. They come and they spend time guiding and mentoring the students. And so we want to meet them so that you know who is serving you and who the gods in our community are. So why don't we start, Katy, off with your favorite fandom or movie series, and you can pick a couple if you want.
Okay, yes. I was saying to Dominic before we started recording that this is like the hardest question ever.
It's totally unfair.
Yeah, it's very unfair. But I did think of one. Okay, so Star Trek is probably my favorite franchise series, but only the originals through Voyager.
Okay.
Anything else, no.
Okay. There you go. Cool. I'm a Stargate guy, so I have not yet cultivated an appreciation for Star Trek. So
Hey, Stargate's great too.
So what's your origin story? Let's go for how you became a humorist and a fantasy writer.
Okay, so I've been writing stories basically since I learned to write. Since before I learned to write, I would just draw pictures of stories. And my family's always just been really into humor and how humor can really give you perspective on what's going on in the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And humor can really keep you sane during difficult times and help you kind of explore the big picture. So I've always had that as a part of just my family culture. And I wrote my first book when I was very young. I started it at 9 and then I published it at 19. So it evolved a lot over the course of that 10 years. And then I went to JP Catholic. I got lots of training in how to do writing, how to construct a story. Then I just went into the workforce, built a family, got married, did all those kinds of things. And while I was doing that, I started publishing short stories on my blog. And eventually I went on to publish 3 fantasy novels from that, all of them with sort of very much a satirical, people say I have like a British or a Monty Python style sense of humor. So they're very much in that vein. They're fairy tales. They also kind of make fun of all the fairy tale cliches as well.
Yeah, they're so wry. That's awesome. What are you writing these days? Now that you just published a novel as of this recording. In the last couple of months, you published a novel. Are you working on something new? Are you taking a break and just doing more short stories? What are you writing these days?
Oh, I've got so much. So I'm doing 2 sequels to the novels that I've already published.
Okay.
So I'm doing one sequel to Love, Treachery, and Other Terrors, and then I'm going to be doing a sequel to Rosalind's Curse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also doing a middle school book that's going to be a fantasy book, but definitely more focused on that particular audience. And I'm always trying to keep the short stories coming too, so there's just a lot in the works right now.
Awesome. That sounds fun. I'm curious. So since we'll talk about being a mentor in just a second, first I'd like to hear in your own words, why is legend fiction something that's valuable or fun for you, or maybe why the mission is important to you, such that you are choosing to spend time with the teens and the authors in the community?
Yeah, this is so important because when we watch movies or we read books that are just published by, the big studios or the big publishers, right? They're telling a story. They tell some really great stories, but these are written from a secular perspective, and there's a lot of things that I, as somebody growing up in a deeply religious Catholic community, can't necessarily relate to. There's a lot of obviously a lot of the values are very, very different. So we've got these really great stories, these very entertaining stories, just superheroes and aliens and sci-fi and fantasy and all this really fun stuff, but that's not written with our core values, or even just letting us tell our perspective, telling how it might be different to be a Christian living in a secular society and trying to live your values and figuring out where you fit in. So having a place where we can share our stories and our life perspective is just fantastic, but also having them just be really great stories, not stories that are trying to convert anyone, not, Christian fantasy per se, where it's like all allegory or anything like that. I mean, it can be if it's a good one, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be a really fun story about, aliens fighting like space narwhals or something like that. That is totally acceptable.
And that should be a thing.
Yeah. It's so important to have that creative outlet where we can tell our stories to both to each other and to the world at large.
Absolutely. So, in that vein, then, what are some of the services that you offer, either in consulting or ways that you work with authors or teams?
Yeah, so my primary service that I'll offer is I love to read through people's manuscripts or short stories, whichever it happens to be, and I will note how I'm feeling as I'm reading through the story. And the reason that I do that, I almost do like a stream of consciousness thing, like almost everything that comes into my head, I'll post. And the reason I do that is because it helps you as the author to understand if you're hitting the emotional beats. So I might just put, LOL if I find something funny. And then you, as the author, can say, like, either, like, yes, that joke worked, or, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to be funny.
To land that way. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to be very specific, too, like whenever possible. If you're doing something really well, I won't just say, oh, this is great. I'll say, this is great because you build tension really well. And the tension worked really well in this scene. This is great because these two characters have great chemistry. Because I think it's just as important to be building on your strengths as it is to be working on the things that your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And when I do find something I think that's not working, I also try to be really specific about that as well, so that you know exactly what the problem is and exactly what needs to be fixed.
Fantastic. I mean, that's just amazing. Who is your dream audience, and who are the people that you prefer? I mean, you might accept to work with all kinds of people, but if you could pick the kinds of people that you'd like to work with the best, who would they be?
Yeah, so I like to work with people who are pretty lighthearted, who have a great sense of humor. I also really want people who are going to be open-minded, and maybe they don't agree with all of my notes, but they're at least willing to kind of consider, maybe she's got a point here. Maybe we can do this, or ask clarifying questions like, okay, you're telling me that these characters, they don't work well together. Can you tell me more about that? At what point did you feel like these characters were not working well together? So people like that who just have a very open mind, they're willing to have that conversation, they're willing to learn, and, they don't take themselves too seriously.
Awesome. Where can people find you online if they're interested in buying your books, learning more about you, seeing your blog posts, updated stories? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at katysfables.com. That's KATYSfables.com.
Fantastic. And also, of course, if you're in the community, Katy's got her own profile with links to things. She's also present on the World's website, which is where we have all of the stories that are posted in legend fiction, contests and quests. Katy's even got a quest going at this time. So what is the one thing that you wished people knew about editing or crafting stories? Just like one tip that you wish you would never see submitted to you again, that people just get it right, people. What would you pick?
Oh, okay, that's a hard one. I think that, well, the first thing I would say is just, if you're in doubt, just submit it. Every note that I'll say that you need to improve is probably something I've had to improve on in the past. So don't feel embarrassed or hold yourself back. That's all part of the process. And if I submit a correction, I'm not judging you, because I've made that same mistake myself at some point. I guarantee it. Yeah, but with regard to editing, I would say, just keep an open mind and be willing to listen to what your readers say.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie. So there you go. Legends, members of our community, you have now heard Katie's overview. You can reach out to her at any time. You can DM her. You can send her an email through her website. And if you're not yet a member of our Legend Fiction community, this is, as Katie just outlined, a creative community for modern Catholic and Orthodox authors. We're all about discovering new worlds. It's a place where you can support your favorite authors, share your works in progress, and join a private community to give and get feedback. So come and check us out, legendfiction.com. You can join Worlds for free, or then join our private community. At any point, you can reach out to and access our mentors for help with your creative adventures. Thanks again, Katie. We'll see you in the community.
Thanks, Dominic.